Hello everyone, I'm Stephen Derek Brown and I'm the head of the Institutional Sales Department of VPS Securities, Vietnam's largest securities company by market share, every quarter since April 2021. We have a very distinguished guest joining us today, His Majesty's Consul General and also Director of Business and Trade in Vietnam, Alexandra Smith. How are you today?
I'm really well, Stephen. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Basically, at a very interesting period of time in the relationship between the UK and Vietnam, and you've joined, having been one of the heads of the ASEAN Business Development and Trade for the UK, and prior to that, doing work with Norway and other European nations. We've recently signed the UK-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement, and then also, very importantly, ascended to the CPTPP. So these are all of your areas of expertise and management. So if we start with a little bit of a look at the trade scene of how it's gone in 2024-25 under your directorship, with your colleagues at the consulate and the embassy in Hanoi.
Absolutely. Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me. I completely agree with the sentiments that you were making around this being a really exciting time for British and Vietnamese trade relationships. 2025 marks 15 years of UK strategic partnership with Vietnam, and as you rightly say, we have 2 trade agreements with Vietnam, and so are very much integrated here in the Vietnamese business environment. And I have a lot of ambition to really see UK-Vietnamese trade get stronger, go strength to strength. And at the moment, the trends are looking really positive for the UK. So in the last 10 years, the trading relationship between the UK and Vietnam has doubled. And we are now have a trading relationship of £6.6 billion, really significant. And given that this is the fastest growing economy in Southeast Asia, I see huge potential for UK-Vietnamese trade in that context. And those different tools that we have available to us are bilateral trade agreements, which we signed in May 2021, and now the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, CPTPP, that came into force for the UK with Vietnam on the 15th of December in 2024. So we are just now starting to see businesses wanting to use that agreement and increase the numbers of even more British businesses operating here in Vietnam.
Sure, and the fact that there's already extant cohort of large foreign direct investment from the UK is multi-billion pound equivalent investment scenario, isn't it?
That's right, yeah, exactly. There's a really strong platform here from which we can build. Way back from when the Vietnamese economy first opened to the world in the early 90s, we saw British businesses really come here very quickly. And the same individuals that came here in the early 90s are still here and doing amazing work, very much like the chair of our British Corporate Advisory Council, Warwick Klein, the head of Dragon Capital, Dominic Scriven, and there are many, many more. I wish I could name everybody. But yes, there are British people here very much committed to seeing Vietnam prosper and supporting more British involvement here in Vietnam.
Talking about that last point, you have a very full event calendar, both inbound and outbound. Would you like to enlighten us on some of the major activities and missions that you've helped support since your time?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the core bread and butter of what I'm here to do here in Vietnam, is tell the story about the opportunity, bring as many different sorts of businesses here to Vietnam where there are key trends where they will succeed. So the big focus that I've had in the recent months has been around CPTPP, so helping businesses understand the opportunities and make the most of the new advantages that they have now under the agreement. So we've been doing a series of events on CPTPP for goods and for services, explaining the provisions. We had thought leaders from London come out to explain that directly to the business community, show where the opportunities lie. For example, on the goods side now with CPTPP, tariffs are dropping really quickly. We will reach 99% tariff-free trade between the UK and Vietnam. That's more liberal than our bilateral agreement, with the liberalisation coming even more quickly. It also puts in commitments there around customs, and treatment of goods at the border. So 48 hours when your good arrives in Vietnam, it's out into the market, not sitting on the dock. So goods are reaching the people of Vietnam much more quickly. And then on the services side, is more interesting provisions there around movement of people, around being able to provide more services here in Vietnam without having to open an office. So helping a British company slowly grow into Vietnam without having to make a huge capital investment to provide a service. So hoping it will encourage more services trade here into Vietnam as well. And I think the really exciting element about CPCPP too is the digital elements of CPCPP. It's the most liberal agreement when it comes to digital trade. It recognises paperless trade, it recognises e-signatures, so making it cheaper and easier for businesses.
And in March, there's inbound mission.
There are, yes.
In this sector, isn't there?
Yeah. So we have multiple inbound missions in the next few months.
Yeah.
So this week, I've been hosting the UK Fashion and Textiles Association. They've come here for a large textile expo that's been happening in Ho Chi Minh City. So bringing high quality heritage British textiles from the likes of Harris Tweed up in Scotland, all the way through to Yorkshire, places where this textile has been produced for hundreds of years, family businesses. So they're very much coming here to see how more British textile can be used in manufacturing here in Vietnam. And sold to the really high quality, amazing tailoring services that Vietnam is so famous for. And then in March, we have two really exciting delegations coming. So the first is on the healthcare space. So healthcare I see as the biggest trend at the moment for UK trade with Vietnam. It's our highest export, about 100 million on average a year, and I think there's room for more growth, especially in the areas of medical technology and wellness, so vitamins, supplements. The Vietnamese market now, consumers not only care about their health, but they have more disposable income. People want to be spending money on these issues, so huge opportunity there for UK businesses. So that will be on the third week of March. We're doing a business forum here in Vietnam, helping these British medtech companies show what they can do and meet with buyers from the public sector and private sector in healthcare here. And then just after them, so it's going to be a busy fortnight for me, we have a tech delegation coming here to Vietnam.
Yes.
So we have 13 AI companies providing high-end, innovative AI solutions to be embedded across multiple different tools and across multiple sectors. As you and I both know, AI is the buzzword at the moment when it comes to business across sectors. It's changing our lives, our daily lives, it's changing the way we think about doing business. So in a market like Vietnam, which is developing so quickly and is so dynamic and responsive to trends, it's the perfect place really. And they'll be here for a few days, again, meeting with potential buyers and other Vietnamese tech companies. So lots to come.
And that's just within Vietnam.
Yeah.
Then later, through the course of the year, you'll be hosting Deputy Prime Minister Bin for a visit to London.
That's
and
right.
Seeing business counterparties there and ministers and so on.
Yeah, exactly. So we look forward to welcoming Deputy Minister Bin in March, and he's bringing a really great delegation as well with him across the different elements of policy making when it comes to financial services. And this has all been driven by the UK's leadership in the International Financial Centre that
Yes.
Vietnam is planning.
That's the next segue. So do tell, how's it going? Because it's already now under the drive and leadership of the Prime Minister of Vietnam on the Vietnam side, and the likes of yourself and your colleagues as the local boots on the ground here. And the UK will be hosting also Ministry of Finance personnel, I think, from Vietnam in, is it May this year as well? So.
Yeah, exactly. So this all started a couple of years ago, actually, when the Vietnamese government came to the City of London, saw the city, saw how it worked, saw how it was the centre of the British economy. The UK was one of the first financial centres globally, and we have a lot to share in that space. And I think he was inspired by that and thought, well, how can Vietnam be a part of this? So following on from that, we've been working really closely with Vietnam, sharing our expertise through the City UK, our leading industrial body on financial services. They've been amazing in terms of sharing policy papers, bringing together thought leaders from across industry, and to share their insights both virtually and in person through different meetings. So yes, this has been very consistent from us, and something that I'm specifically proud of is that we're really coming from this as a place of what's best for Vietnam, because that's what it is ultimately all about. There are so many different models out there for what an international financial centre could look like. There are many across the world, some that have been there for hundreds of years, like us in London, and then some really new ones, like over in Kazakhstan and in the Middle East. So there are lots of different models there for Vietnam, and we've just been sharing what we have seen as best practice from these multiple models, very much in the context of Vietnam, its place in the world, what it does well, its manufacturing base, its agricultural base, so they can think about what might work best for them, sort of talking to friends and partners.
Compilation, best fit for purpose.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And what really excites me about the IFC in particular is that it's not just about financial services, but the development of an international financial centre is going to really, firstly, put the attention on Vietnam, which I think is really exciting, and also encourage sort of international standardisation across regulation and legal frameworks.
Sure.
That will impact multiple sectors and make it even easier and give businesses more confidence to come here to Vietnam.
Sure. At the end of the day, it will dramatically increase the investability of Vietnam, the listed landscape. It'll uplift the unlisted landscape as well, and lead to potential IPO pathways through the IFC or through the broader stock exchange environment, perhaps with UK investment as well in many of the private enterprise areas, venture capital areas as well. You're keen on that, too.
Exactly. So yeah, it's a really exciting space across the financial services sector, and this is ultimately what the UK does well.
Yes.
We are a service-based economy. 1 in 17 people in the UK work in financial services. We're the second largest exporter of financial services globally. So this is a speciality for the UK. So I'm pleased that we are able to share our insights and resources with Vietnam.
Sure. And the City of London has been doing that as well, concurrent to everything you're doing. The Lord Mayor of London came last September.
That's right, yeah.
And you helped lead the engagement of his tour here.
Yeah.
You'll be doing it again this September for the new one. Explain how the visits that he pursued last September included places like Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi, and this time perhaps Da Nang to look at the IFC side.
Well, I think it's a bit too early days to say, Stephen, exactly where and exactly what. But I would love to see the Lord Mayor come back to Vietnam. He was a fantastic champion of the sector back in September, and made the point very clearly that it's actually not just about financial services, but the City of London is home to multiple different sectors, and it's about creating an ecosystem. Of course, where finance sits underneath, because we all need financing to make our businesses expand and grow, but this is something that can benefit a whole economy.
Sure. Talking about sectors, the UK, you have in the remit of service sectors, healthcare, education, and so on. Would you like to touch on some of the export priorities, bilateral trade areas that are priorities for the coming year?
Yeah, absolutely. So where I'm really focusing my energy this year is on 3 key sectors. So healthcare, which we've touched upon with the medtech and the wellness space. Education has always been a strong suit for the UK here in Vietnam. Vietnam is a strategic partner when it comes to transnational education. And something that really touches me as a Consul General working here is that the majority of Vietnamese people I meet have somehow, somewhere touched British education in their lives. They either learn English through the British Council back in my office. My office was the old teaching centre. So there, or they've sent their children to schooling in the UK, or their children are benefiting from a British curriculum in their Vietnamese school, or they aspire to go to university in the UK, or indeed take up a British university course through a Vietnamese university. So across the ages, when it comes to education, it's an area where the UK is really strong.
And in education, in Vietnam, English is now an official second language, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So there's loads of opportunity here, and you're right to touch upon English language training as well as British education. So it's a wonderful, very rewarding sector to work with, and it creates those people links, which is so important when it comes to building relationships between 2 countries.
So the education space, you've also got British University of Vietnam in Hanoi.
That's
They're
right.
looking at expanding here in Ho Chi Minh City as well. And that provides quite a unique pathway for students to live and study locally but take British university degrees. So it's quite an interesting add-on for them.
Yeah, so digital tech is really, really exciting.
Yes.
So this is an area where, again, the UK is a leader at the moment. We have the second highest number of unicorns come from the UK, more than France and Germany combined, I must say. So it's a space, again, of UK leadership. And with this AI delegation coming to town, it's going to be the perfect opportunity to strengthen our relationship further in the tech space. And it's something I really admire in Ho Chi Minh City's vision, actually, as a city, is that the People's Committee is really thinking about how do we digitalise everyday life here in Ho Chi Minh, and looking at sort of the different public services that are provided here and how digital tools can make things even easier. So that's an area where the UK is really trying to support, especially in the healthcare space. How can we use AI and tech in hospitals so that you can process information much more quickly? How it can make medical services more accessible for people living outside of Ho Chi Minh City, because Ho Chi Minh City actually services many more people than just this direct province. People travel to come to the hospitals here. But there's not enough space for everybody to stay in hospital, so giving them tech so that doctors can monitor them remotely. Those sorts of opportunities. So that's a really exciting space for us. And linked to sort of the people here in Vietnam, thinking about also consumer goods as well. Like I touched on in the wellness space around sort of the growing middle class here in Vietnam. And I meet and see aspiring Vietnamese that want to own higher end luxury product, which the UK is really proud to create. In the food and drink space, so whiskey, of course, is our most famous. 97% of whiskey drunk in Vietnam comes from Scotland, it's Scotch whiskey. And then the confectionery space, biscuits, those British treats are really important. And then also in the product space as well. So Jo Malone, Lush, Body Shop, these companies are coming into Vietnam.
And on the UK-Vietnam FTA front, Vietnamese exporters can now sell their produce into the UK tariff-free, can't they?
Exactly.
So it's just a question of utilisation, knowledge of the provincial farmers and all of the small enterprises to be aware of that and to run with the ball with that, and then sell their produce to the UK, so they can come and see people like yourself and your team and put them in contact with the relevant parties in London and elsewhere.
That's right, that's right. And if we think about trade sort of bigger picture, it's not just sort of goods made in the UK and sent and Vietnamese goods and sent and vice versa. What CPCPP can enable companies to do is really think about the supply chain. Because of the way that CPCPP enables a company to build a product from multiple locations and still class it as originating from the UK, it makes it even more appealing to think about Vietnam as not just a place to send your finished good, but also as a place to maybe manufacture an element of your product or acquire a certain component for your product, which will help create an efficiency, a good price, and enable a British company to export it more widely.
And that's the unique advantage for the UK-Vietnam relationship, because UK and Vietnam, currently they're the only European continental party for Vietnamese to partner with. The UK, we're the only partner in the CPTPP sphere, aren't we?
We're the only European partner in the mix, exactly. Yeah. So I always think of CPCPP as the UK's gateway to the Indo-Pacific, and to the Americas as well, but this is very much the Indo-Pacific region. So yeah, this is a really exciting opportunity. CPCPP members make up 15% of global GDP, and they make up half of the consumer class in the world. So this is a huge new step for British traders, and I'm really hoping we're going to see a big increase in the trading relationship as a result of this agreement.
Yep. Financial services, just quickly.
Exciting, very exciting. Well, we've talked a lot about the IFC, and financial services all buy into this, right? So supporting Vietnam in growing its financial services offering through bringing more British services here to Vietnam.
One of those will be the FTSE Russell rating agency coming this year, because the London-based FTSE Russell is likely to be the first agency that will re-rate and upgrade Vietnam from the frontier market to secondary emerging market status as well. So the interaction and linkage is, again, unique between Vietnam and the UK as well. So.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many opportunities there. And just from talking to you and listing them all out, it just makes you realise how broad the relationship is between the UK and Vietnam.
And how deep, yeah.
Yeah, and extremely ambitious. But there's a lot of spaces where we can collaborate even further than we are now.
Lastly, energy, green energy. It is a perfect spot for offshore wind, solar. There's hydro here already, and a lot of UK investment, international investment in this space. Any comments on the energy area?
So I think this is an area where, we really need to see investment, it is in this space. Our blinkers shouldn't be on to the climate crisis that this world is facing, but it's felt very acutely here in Vietnam. There are multiple international studies that place Vietnam as in the top 5 most vulnerable countries to climate change, to rising sea water, etc. So the need to go green is really important. I was really pleased that Prime Minister Ching committed to net zero by 2050 in the UK at COP26 in Glasgow. And we announced the Just Energy Transition Partnership package of support for Vietnam, which the UK leads here in Vietnam alongside the other international partners. So this is an area where the UK wants to provide resource, and we continue to work really closely with Vietnam to hopefully open up the door. But the UK, again, is a world leader in offshore wind. The largest offshore wind plant is off Scotland in the UK, and lots of British companies are really engaged in this space. So yeah, I think the stage is set, basically, for the green transition to become a reality, bringing more renewables here to Vietnam. And it's an area where I'm really, really passionate about getting that going, because it's so important.
Brilliant. Alex, it's been a pleasure to have a chat to you on VPS Live. And there's a swag of missions and trade organisations and corporations coming here this year. And I think it'll be an eye-opener for when they do come here to see, like you said, with the CPTPP ability to source from Vietnam and then still stay made in the UK for global export. It's quite a unique opportunity for both Vietnamese corporates and UK corporates to stand side by side and advance each other's economies. So,
thank you.
Yeah, good job so far.
No, thank you so much. And it's all down to support from people like yourself and the British Chamber of Commerce and the British Corporate Advisory Council. It's definitely a partnership, so thank you, Stephen.
Thank you so much. Steve Brown from VPS Securities with Alexandra Smith, the Consul General in Ho Chi Minh City for the UK and also the Director of Business and Trade for Vietnam. Have a good day.